Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back. So recently I've been helping out some new players that have hit me up on my Discord channel. They asked me a bunch of questions and basically I just guided them through the early game of what they needed to do. And I realized that a lot of players don't really know which monsters are really good. So today I'm just going to be going through really fast. Last time I did the to fodder, not to fodder thing. Really fast, but then I didn't even cover the light dark monsters. I didn't really cover what those monsters can be used for. I just basically said this is good, this is bad. But this time I'm going to talk a little bit about what that monster can be used for. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I will need to go through every single monster in the game, but if you have questions, definitely do ask me. I'm just going to be talking about what that monster is excels at, and maybe just a little bit of detail about them. So we're going to go through every single NAT4 monster in the game, all the way up, and maybe we'll do a NAT5 next time. And then I'll probably go back and do a most useful NAT3s, like useful NAT3s that you can use. So we're going to start off with the Fire Hana. She's not really useful for anything. The sleep chance is too low, this debuff is not a good debuff. SP Siphon also is not... it's not really good either. I've actually personally experimented with this. It's not very good. She's definitely one of the weaker Hanas. The Water Hana is relatively nice. She's not too bad, but there are better healers than her. Resilience is actually really underrated. It's a very strong debuff, or very strong buff that you can have on your whole entire team. Because basically it makes it so when people hit you, you gain more SP. Having more SP makes runs more reliable because your heals, your active skills are always up. So it's a really good debuff, and Sap is pretty decent early game. She also has some nice stats, so it's not too bad. Although most of the Hanas are recovery type, so they usually have they have high HP, high recovery, a little bit lower defense, but it's still pretty good, not too bad. The Wood Hana is one of the stronger healers in the game. She has attack down and defense up, very defensive healer. Attack down is a really strong debuff. Defense up is also a very strong buff. So her skill set is really nice, and her stat is, I think out of the 3 RGB elements, she actually has the nicest stat because most of it actually goes into HP, so it's pretty good. Now we have the Light Hana. She's one of the best healers. You could even argue that she's one of the best monsters in the game because of the aggression and shield and how the shield scales with her max HP. She is a very high scaling healer if you have very high HP subs or HP gems or anything like that. If you can push her HP up really high, then she's going to be a very effective tank / damage dealer / healer / shielder. Yeah, just everything really. Plus she's light, so you can actually use her in like a mono light defense. It's pretty nice. Her stat is also pretty good because most of it, she is the only tank type Hana. Most of it is going into HP, so it's not too bad. The defense could definitely be higher, but it's not all that bad. Now the Dark Hana is also recovery type. Most of it went to attack, not as good as the Wood one. She's also a shield monster. Shield monsters are really strong early game, and she's also a monster that basically both her skills are stronger early game because this kind of works as a passive heal. When you hit someone, it gets a little bit of red soul, and it's kind of like an unreliable passive heal, but it's still pretty nice to have because it is a bonus. It's not bad to have it on a healer. And she also has a shield that scales with her max HP. Now this doesn't scale with your gems, but it does scale with her HP. So as long as you can get her HP or her level up, it doesn't matter how much HP she has. It always just scales with her max level. So all you really need to do is ascend her, and the shield will become thicker. Now moving on, the Wildfangs. Now this is probably a monster I don't really need to talk too much about. She just self-sustains really well. I didn't talk really about where the Hanas could be useful, but I did talk, because healers you can bring anywhere really. Anywhere that they don't have elemental disadvantage against, you can actually just bring that healer as long as it's a good healer. So the Fire Wildfang is a really good monster for Golems B9. One of the best monsters because she has self-sustain. Self-sustaining is a very, very good strategy for Golems B9. So she's definitely a monster worth raising early on if you want to use her for that. And yeah, there's not really much to say. She's one of the better NAT4s. The water one's relatively weak. This chance is pretty low. Not the strongest debuff. Just some CC. Stat is pretty nice, like, because it's mostly tank. But just her skills aren't really all that good. It's not too reliable. The wood one is actually quite good. She has CC on both her skills, Petrify and Sleep. She's also very good for Dragon's B10. I wouldn't say like really good. There are definitely a lot better alternatives, but she is a 100% CC monster, and those are really, really good for Dragon's B10. So if you want to, eventually do that in the future, she's definitely gonna help out a little bit. I used to use her for Dragon's B10 until I replaced her with Light Medusa. But she definitely did help me a little bit early on. Now the Light Wildfang is probably one of the strongest arena defense monsters right now, because you'll see a lot of top teams, top people like in top 100 put her on defense, mainly due to the buff. She now has a 100% chance to armor break, so this is really reliable. She also has shock, which is one of the strongest debuffs in PvP because it's an armor break plus a stun. And she is the only 100% armor breaker that has that is an attack type. So her defensive stats are the best out of all the. Actually, no. There's the light NEWBS, but his second skill's shit. Like, I think he has better stats, but his second skill's shit. Yeah, this guy has tankier stats, but Thirst is pretty bad. So she definitely has like better debuffs. She's not as tanky, but she is balance type, so she can provide a little bit more damage. Most people just still build her full tanky anyways, and she does her job relatively well. So really good monster. Highly recommend her if you're lucky enough to get her. I also have her. You might have noticed how nothing's glowing. I'm actually doing this review on my alt account, not on my main. My main needs to farm. Now this is the Dark Wildfang. The Dark Wildfang is, I would say, one of the stronger dark attackers. She has 30% crit from both her skills, so you only need. She starts off with 40% crit basically, so 10% from the base, plus 30 equals 40, and if you can get 20% crit on all your gems, all 3 of your gems, you can push 100% crit rate on her. 100% crit rate on a monster with that is dark, and you can gem like 2 slot attack crit damage or something like that to boost her crit up, or her crit damage, or just basically all her damage up all the way, because you can get that nice optimization of the same amount of attack and the same amount of bonus crit damage if you gem her that way. Or you can do triple attack if you can get 3 20% crit rate gems on Ruin or something like that. She can hit relatively hard, and she's she's really nice, like, because dark monsters have high attack. Her stats aren't the best, but because of how her skills work, she's going to be hitting really, really hard. So good monster, definitely a really good monster. Man, this video is going to be like 3 hours long if I don't speed up. Okay, Recovery Down is a shitty debuff. Thirst is not too strong. She's not good. I'm just gonna. That's it. She's not good. She's just not good. This is not the strongest debuff. It's alright early on, but then it like completely falls off. She has 60% chance to land two turn saps for 1 turn, or 1 turn sap, which is also not too good. I think it's the equivalent of Water Yuki, but her first skill is not as good. So she definitely gets outclassed by like a Water Yuki or something like that. So she's not too good. But if you don't have a sapper, you can actually kind of use her early on. She's not too bad. Okay, she's actually pretty bad. I had to force myself to say that. Now the wood one is probably the best one. Morale boost, defense down, really, really nice. The Banshees also, you want to take note of their leader skill. If you can happen to get them as one of them as a variant, especially the wood one as a variant, it's very, very nice to run her for her variant skill. And she's basically boosts her bar defense down. Like, these are two very good skills. And she's also attacker type, and her stat is pretty good for an attacker. High, not super high HP, but pretty high HP, pretty high attack. Like, none of it goes to recovery, so it's really, really nice. Light one is Shock and Sap. She's not too good because her Shock only lasts for 1 turn and only has a 70% chance, so this is relatively low. But her Sap actually lands two turn Saps for 100%, so she outclasses the water one, just like completely outclasses her. And yeah, and she also has Shock, like, which is a better first skill than the water one, so she's basically like the water one but stronger in every single sense, but still not that good. But it's alright. It's not too bad if you don't have a sapper. You can actually use her early on. The Dark Banshee has Sap and Sleep, 100% Sap for 2 Saps for 1 turn. This is also not bad to use early on. Sleep is relatively useless, so really not all that useful. You can kind of raise her early on just to use as a sapper. You don't need to max her out, maybe like 4-star max level, or maybe if you don't have any sappers at all, you want to farm maybe Starstones or something a little bit faster. You can actually use Sap against the boss, especially if you don't have a lot of damage or a lot of really good gems. Then you can use this 100% Sap to speed your runs up a little bit, especially at the boss part. Now moving on, this is the Fire Victoria. She's probably one of the weaker ones. Taunt, Petrify, not all that useful. Petrify is also a low chance. Stats pretty damn good, but the skills are just too bad. Like, I can't recommend anyone use her. The water one's actually one of the best, one of the better water attackers, because she has defense down on both her skills. She's basically like a water version of the Fire Yuki. A lot of people know more about the Fire Yuki because she's a little bit more popular, like people like to use her, but not a lot of people like to use the Water Victoria, maybe because she gets like overshadowed by like the Dark Victoria. But she does have very nice stats for her attacker, and she has nice skills, and she has a nice variant skill, so, and she's fusible, so very good. Wood one I think is just double CC, double stun, not too useful. Chances are very low too, so unreliable, not really good. Just I can't say too much. It's not that good. Now the light one is very, very nice. You can use her for all dungeons. You can basically use this monster for pretty much every single part of the game. Like, you can use her for anything. You can use her to run arena, to run early game, to run any of the Starstones, to run any of the golems, to run farming scenario maps. You can use her for absolutely everything in the game. She has aggression on both her skills, so meaning the more defense you have on her, the more damage she does. And she tanks, she does damage, and that's it. Like, she just does those 2 jobs really well. She tanks and she does damage. That's it. It's very straightforward. The Dark Victoria is one of my favorite monsters in the game. I just really like her design. I like her color scheme. I like everything, really. Especially the variant. The variant looks so good. She has a 100% stun if you can get her crit rate to 100%, and she also has a 60% defense down for 3 turns. Now this is like pretty much as strong as a Fire Arthur if you can get her crit rate to 100%. And yeah, she's really good. She's also balance type. Her stat distribution is decent. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's not too bad. And she's also on my Dragon Speed 10 team. She's one of the best, you know, one of the better Dragon Speed 10 team monsters, because she has 100% CC. She can use Armor Break in case your 100% Armor Breaker doesn't land the Armor Break, but this is a very late game. You know, you can refer to all the videos where I do Dragon Speed 10 if you want to learn a little bit more about her. So that's pretty much it for the Victorias. Moving on to the Curas, I think. Yes, the Curas. Now the Fire Cura is one of the best monsters for Golem's B9 because the B9 boss has a lot of sap, and shield, if you don't know, basically blocks out all debuffs as long as you have it on. So the boss doesn't do too much damage, and if you can keep this shield on your team the whole time, then the boss won't be able to sap your team basically. She also has morale boost for her team, but it only procs on critical hits. I wouldn't recommend putting 1 crit rate gem on her unless you have her 6-star. You could possibly do that because she actually has some pretty good stats. She also has high recovery, so she can also heal a lot and be your main healer. And I wouldn't really just put 1 crit rate on her. I might try to get a little bit of crit rate substats. If I really need to, I can put on an intuition set if I really want that morale boost to proc. But I don't really want to sacrifice a whole entire gem slot for critical rate just for this skill. It's a little bit unfortunate that she was crippled a little bit by the crit rate requirement. Now the Water Cura, a lot of people like this monster. She basically has a morale boost for herself. She's one of the only morale boost healers in the game. There's a few, but she's one of the only ones. And basically what this means is she's going to be able to get her heal up faster than a lot of the other healers because she's going to be morale boosting herself. She also has a 3-turn attack up. She recently got buffed. Very good monster for anything really. Like, she's just one of the better healers, mainly because I don't think many people really use her for the attack buff. Most people use her because she's able to get the heal up faster than any other healer because of the morale boost. Although attack buff is also really nice, and especially now that it lasts 3 turns is pretty good. She's also a tank type. Her stat is pretty good. She's really tanky. Now the Cura, now, in contrast to like popular belief, she's actually not that bad. It's just that she gets outclassed by the other Curas. The other Curas are definitely really strong. But having adrenaline to heal herself is definitely not too bad on a healer. And resilience, as I explained before, is a fairly useful debuff. One of the most underrated debuffs in the game. Basically, keeps your SP up for a long time. She's also really tanky as well. A lot of it went to HP and defense, so that's also really good for a healer. Not too bad, but she does get outclassed by some of the other Curas. The light one is probably the best Cura, definitely the best Cura. She's a defender type. She has a 60% chance to 2-turn shock on 3 turns. Now, this is very strong. Light monsters with shock are insane. Like, shock is an insane debuff for PvP, and if you have her on arena defense, then she's pretty annoying. And dominance is also one of the stronger debuffs in the game, because dominance is basically like a thirst, but it can't be resisted. So as long as their team has the dominance up and nukes you, your SP is going to keep going down. So dominance is a very strong debuff, especially in PvP. So she's a really good monster to run on arena defense. You'll see her on a lot of top teams as well. Alright, so this is the Dark Cura. Now, she actually is my favorite monster in the game. I really like her design and everything, but the problem is I've been trying really hard to make her usable, but the problem is she really isn't all that good. I think the main problem is the SP siphon just doesn't, she doesn't get this up fast enough. Like, if she can get this up in like the 3rd turn or something, it might actually be pretty decent. But the ramp up time of the SP siphon skill is just way too long for it to even matter at all. So, it's a little bit problematic. But I'm still trying a few things out with her to see if she can be useful. I just really like the design of the Cura, especially the dark one. Like, when I was reading through her story and stuff, I thought she was really interesting. She's also one of the first light dark NAT4s that I've gotten, so that I guess I'm a little bit biased. I really do like that monster quite a lot. Now, this is the Cupid. Fire Cupid, in my opinion, is actually the strongest Cupid late game, because he can be used for farming, like, or not farming, but like doing clan battles and stuff. Attack down, attack up for your team is very useful. The attack down debuff is very, very strong against the Titan as well. So late game, he's definitely, I think, out of the 3 RGB elements, he's the most useful Cupid. The Water Cupid, I actually don't even know what his skills are. Alright, Thirst and Purification. This is like pretty useless. This is, I explained before, Thirst is okay, but it's not really all that good. He's pretty weak. He's definitely one of the weaker healers in the game. The Wood Cupid is very, very strong early on because he's a shield monster, and people that don't have shield really want to take advantage of shield as much as possible. So for this reason alone, it doesn't even matter what he does. It doesn't even matter what his skills are. For the shield alone, he's relatively good early on just to use for the shield. Like, a lot of people really just raise him just for the shield, but he does get outclassed by a lot of other shield monsters in the game, like, you know, I'm not going to talk about the Light Dark, but, you know, Fire Cura, for example, which is like I think the only other shielder. Yeah, so it's the only other one. So, you know, shield is not too common in the RGB element. So that's why a lot of people do actually raise him, although his shield is one of the weaker shields because it doesn't really scale with anything. The Light Cupid is a very, very unique monster. He actually has a skill that's unique only to him, and that is the aggression that scales with recovery. So basically, the more recovery he has, the more damage he does, so he's going to be healing quite a lot. He also has Zeal, which is really interesting because Zeal can increase the SP. I think it's like 15% a turn, so this kind of serves as like a free SP, like a real SP battery for your team to boost up their SP a little bit every single turn, as long as he can keep it up. I don't think he's really all that useful, and his stat is not super good. He's relatively squishy, but he's an interesting monster, and I mean, his color design is quite nice. You can definitely keep him for collection purposes if you actually happen to get one. Okay, moving on to Dark Cupid. Now this guy is he's just the best like active healer in the game. Like, in my opinion, he is definitely the strongest active healer in the game. His HP is the highest out of all the shield based HP shields. He also has relatively high defense for HP type monster, and yeah, he's dark as well, so like he's a light dark healer, so he gets like 10% more resistance. There's just nothing bad about him. Also, Cupids have an HP lead, so if you can get him as a variant, it's just even sicker. Like, he's absolutely disgusting. Not much to say about it. Like, he's just one of the strongest monsters in the game. Fire Succubus. Now this is one of the strongest monsters in the game as well. I've been really enjoying her quite a lot. I've been using her for farming a lot of things. I've been using her to farm like hard maps like Slumbering City. She's very, very good because she has a self-sustain on her first skill. So she's basically a self-sustained nuker. She actually has the potential to keep herself alive while not building her like too tanky. And she also has like, but it only scales with crit rate, so she's more of a late game monster. You definitely need the gems in order to complement her skill set to make it so that she works. And she also has a defense down that also scales with crit rate. So if you want her to be reliable, you definitely do want to push 100% crit rate on her. So she's definitely not very easy to gem. I would not recommend using her early game, but she's one of the best NAT4s in the game right now, in my opinion. The water one recently got buffed too. The water one's also really, really strong for arena defense. She basically boosts her SP by 50% every single time that she crits. Her stat distribution is nice. As you can see, she's relatively tanky, and she has a tack down buff. This is really, really nice. Mainly for arena defense, but you know, even with the attack down buff, you can maybe throw her in your Titans team or something like that. She can definitely do pretty well. And the Succubus also have the HP lead skill, so this is one of the best leader skills in the game. So that's also really, really nice. You can use her for a lot of things, but not too, like, the Succubus aren't too useful early on. You can definitely keep them, but they're really hard to gem because of their crit requirement. You need to have good gems in order to make them work. The next thing is the wood one. Now, the wood Succubus is actually just shitty. Like, she's just shit. Like, sleep, I explained, shield breaker is just only works against shields, so you can't really use her anywhere. It's just not good. Light Succubus is really strong. Like, if you look at the top arena defenses right now, she's really good for arena defense. I don't think she really is all that good for anything else. It's mainly just an arena defense monster, but she is definitely one of the best at her job. And she boosts her, she's one of the only monsters that can boost the allies' SP bar. There's a few, but she's one of the only ones that have this skill. And she also has a AoE heal for her team, basically. Like, she does an AoE and also heals her team at the same time, so it's pretty good. The dark one is just double sleep. Sleep's not really all that useful. Stat-wise, I really like it. Like, I really like her stats. I think this is really nice. Distribution-wise, this is like really just perfect. Like, I can't ask for anything better. But the unfortunate thing is her skills aren't too good, so can't really make too much use of her with the two sleeps at 80%. I don't really know what to make of her. You can basically just use her as a bruiser, maybe, and that's it. Like, I really don't have much to say. So the Succubus are stronger late game, but you need the gems in order to make sure they work. So they're a little bit hard to gem. So I definitely don't think they're easy to use early game. You need some specific gems in order to make them work. Now the Fire Leo is one of the best nukers because he has Hunter on both his skills. He definitely hits really hard. High damage, really good fire nuker. Probably one of the best fire nukers in the game. Yeah, Hunter's just too good. Like, he's really good. There's the oh wait, I was supposed to move on to the water one. He's just a good fire nuker. Like, I don't think I really need to explain much. You can use them in wood type dungeons, and that's it. The water Leo is actually pretty tanky. He has pretty high HP, although his defense can be a little bit higher, and he just has taunt and stun. I don't think taunt is really all that nice. It's okay. It's not the best, but then he has an AoE stun, 60% chance as well. If you can get him as an HP leader, some people like to use him, run him in arena defense, but he's not as good as his other counterpart, which is the Wood Leo, which is like one of the most common monsters you'll ever see in arena defense. Mainly because his skill set is pretty, like, it's just perfect. He's got defense down, attack down, HP lead. Just really nice utility. Like, these are the two best debuffs in the game, so can't really complain too much about a Wood Leo. He's just really good. You don't even need to use him in PvP. You can use him for anything. Like, you can armor break anything. Attack down, armor break works on everything in the game. So, he's good everywhere. He's not just good for arena. Light Leo is also an attacker. He's a morale boost attacker with stun, and he's light type, so you can use him against like dark dungeons and stuff for like speed runs, especially with morale boost. He's pretty good for like speed farming and stuff. So definitely one of my one of the monsters I really like. Definitely do want to, if I can get him in the future, that would be really nice as well. Just for speed farming, just to speed things up. Alright, Dark Leo. I think he's the only monster that has 100% attack down. I might be wrong. There might be other monsters that do this. Oh, there are some 3-star monsters like Water Gatito or some shit like that, but I don't think there are any 4 or 5-star monsters that have 100% attack down. I think he's the only one. And it also lasts for 2 turns. And he has silence on his second skill. This is not too useful, but the 100% attack down already makes this monster really damn OP. His stat is really high for attack as well, and he's also dark type for that extra crit damage. So he's a hard hitting damage dealer / utility monster. You can basically abuse this in Titans, and you can use his like attack and utility for arena and stuff. So he's a really good monster. He's also very good for dragons, because you can attack down like the light purse on the first stage, or the dragon, so he does less damage to you. Like, he's a pretty good monster all around. The Jeannes are not too strong. Like Thirst, I explained. Soul Boon, I explained. Not good. 100% sleep and stun is not too bad. This basically provides CC. Some people use her for lower end arena, but the sleep is actually, like, using a sleep debuff. Even CC debuffs aren't too reliable, and she gets outclassed by some other stronger CC monsters like the Water Sura or something, for example. So I think there are definitely stronger counterparts to her. I don't really recommend raising her at all. She just really falls off. Like, it's just not worth the investment. But then again, none of the Jeannes are. Like, Jeanne's a pretty sad monster. Like, most of her RGB 3 elements are actually pretty weak. Alright, this is the Wood Jeanne. Now, like the Dark Wildfang, she has Stalker, but she has 10% less crit rate, and she also doesn't have that nice 100% crit damage as a Dark monster. So she's in every sense weaker than the Dark Wildfang, but she does have better stats. That's all she really has going for her right now. So, I mean, she's an okay wood attacker, but then again, there are better wood attackers, like ones with Predator or something. It's better than a 20% Stalker. Not too happy with her. Like, not too happy with any of the Jeanne. I think they're called Jeannes, right? Like, it's like French. It's not John. It's like Jeanne. You know. The light one is actually really strong. Like, it's funny how the RGB elements are so weak, but the light one is like really good. I think she's the only light HP aggressor that has both HP aggression on both her skills, and yeah, she's just really good. Like, high HP pool. You don't need attack really. Defense is not too high, but just high HP pool. Like, that's really all she has going for her, and HP aggression. Like, that's just really good. So definitely really strong monster. If you happen to get her, you can save all your other Jeannes and feed it into her. The next one is the Dark Jeanne. I don't think she really has any use besides arena defense. She has very, very nice tanky stats, so you can definitely use her for that. And she also has morale boost and silence. Silence is actually pretty deadly in arena. If you silence them, they can't use their heals, they can't use their active skills. It's basically, you know, completely makes it so they can only use their first skill. And morale boost basically boosts her bar up, and she just is going to be really annoying. Like, she just stays alive, keeps morale boosting, keeps silencing, gets more blue soul, and then keeps spamming her skills non-stop. So pretty good monster for arena defense, but that's only just like one job that she can do, and she only works on some specific teams that require an SP battery. Yeah, Jeannes are pretty sad. Like, you don't really need them much at all. Moving on, the Yukis. Now, the Yukis, this one's really good. Defense down, as I explained before, is one of the strongest debuffs. I think if I had to rank debuffs, it's like defense down, attack down, then I don't know. Shock is kind of rare, so I really don't want to put Shock anywhere. Like, I would put Shock first, but like, Shock is so rare. And in some cases, Shock isn't as good as defense down. Like, actually, I think defense down is higher value than Shock, because defense down works against bosses as well. Shock doesn't work against bosses. But it's all situational. It depends on what you're doing. Now, she has really nice attack stats. High attack as a fire attacker. She's just a really good at fire attacker. Like, everything I explained before about the Water Victoria, you can apply to her, and she's fire. She also has a nice crit damage skill. It's not the best leader skill, but it's pretty good for if you're running like mostly attack comps with high crit rate. Just a good monster all around. Now, the water, you can actually use her early game. You can use her for farming. You don't need to make her 6 stars, but if you can get one Even 4 stars, like not 4 stars, even 5 stars. Yeah, 5 stars Evil 1 is still somewhat usable, because if you can have a few extra Yukis, definitely do make her Evil 2. And what she can do for you early on is she can help you farm the star stones and stuff just by sapping the bosses and everything. Just makes the runs a lot faster. Definitely one of my most recommended monsters early game. She'll help you progress very, very fast, and you don't need to give her too much. You just need to slap some HP defense gems on her, and that's it. Like, she'll just sap. You just need to make her as tanky as you possibly can. So you don't need to worry about her in the future. You just leave her there. Once she's not useful anymore, you can eventually feed her to like the fire one to Evil 3 in the future, for example. Alright, recovery down is like, it's just garbage. It's like, it's not even useful. I can't say anything about it. Okay, so the light one is a attacker with double shock, 80%, 50%, 80% 1 turn and 50% 2 turn. Like, shock is really strong for PvP and stuff. Very, 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 very good. You can use her for PvE as well. It's just that the shock doesn't work against bosses, but it can help you clear the waves and stuff really, really well. Not too bad. Just a really solid light attacker that has shock, so it's pretty unique. Thirst and Sap. I think the Sap's pretty good. Like, this is better than the Water Yukis. You can actually use her as your Sapper in the beginning as well. Like, you can actually use her over the Water Yuki early on, because her AoE Sap is a little bit better. But then you don't have Sap on your first skill. It kind of depends. It depends on what type of comp you're running. Maybe the Water Yuki still might make the runs faster because she also has Sap on her first skill. But the Dark one is pretty good for her AoE Sap. You know, Sappers kind of fall off late game. You don't really need her after she's outgrown her usefulness, but I really wouldn't fodder her. So the bad thing is you can't even fodder her because she's kind of rare. Like, I just can't justify feeding a light dark monster. So you're probably better off raising a Water Yuki to Evil 2 early on, so you can eventually feed her maybe to your Fire Yuki or something in the future. Okay, Fire Vampire. Now, this guy is actually really good. He's a self-sustaining monster. This is a monster that actually requires really good gems because he needs crit rate. He has a lot of stat requirements. He requires crit rate, HP, damage, and that's it. Like, he has Hunter, which basically still requires crit rate. So he just requires a lot of crit rate. And like all monsters that require crit rate, they're a little bit harder to gem. So I recommend, you know, not really using him early game. He's not going to be easy to gem early game. He's going to be very hard to gem. So he's definitely not really all that usable early game because of his high stat requirement. Because he requires so many things. Water Vampire is a really good nuker because he has Predator on his first skill, so this basically just increases his overall damage. Sleep is kind of shit, but it doesn't really matter because his first skill is going to be hitting for a lot of damage. He also has high attack stats, so he's just a really good water nuker for his first skill, like a single target water nuker. Not too bad. Definitely usable. You can use him for B8 if you happen to have like some vampires sitting around. You can make him Evil 2 and you can pair him with your like Monas and stuff, and then you can nuke the boss or nuke through everything in B8. The Wood Vampire is actually one of the better sappers in the game. He's one of the best AoE sappers because he has an 80% chance to land 2 one-turn saps, and he has morale boost on his first skill, so he's going to be spamming AoE saps for quite a long time. I don't really recommend using him over the water one, because if you have the water one early, you can just feed everything else into it and make it Evil 2, and you can use that for your BA team or your Pago's coast farming team. So don't really see a place for him because of how, like, in the earlier game, how the water one can help you so much early. And there's no stat requirement for the water one either. It's basically damage. That's it. Alright, Light Vampire. This guy is just a self-sustaining monster. He basically self-sustains, and he has a 70% chance AoE armor break. Pretty straightforward. Good nuke. Good attacker. Can't really say too much. He's also light. He has 3,300. Very good. He's just a good attacker. Like, I can't say too much. I think you just basically judge monsters based on their debuffs and stats. You look at their stats and see if they're like if you want them to be tanky, then you want the defense and HP to be high. If you want them to be an attacker, you need the attack to be high. So you look and see if the stat you want is high, and if their skills are good. And the two things match, that's a good monster. That's basically it. That's how Monster Super League works. The Dark Vampire is also a sapper. He has 80% chance to do a 3-turn sap, so he's a very strong single target sapper. He also has Taunt, and Taunt now works on the boss, so the boss is less likely to use his AoE if he can taunt the boss. But this is like, the chances of this happening is not very, very high, and it's also a 1-turn as well, so it's not too reliable. But you can definitely use him as a sapper early on if you want to run through maybe the Star Storms or something a little bit faster. He definitely does do that pretty well. Ooh, so many monsters. I didn't go over the dungeon monsters. There's this Granitus, which basically is a rock monster. You can use him for he's available from the Guardian dungeon, so everyone can actually farm him and get him to Evo 3 relatively easily. And through the process, you can actually get a few variants, so you can actually make him a variant. It's very easy to make this guy a variant. He has stun and taunt. A lot of people use him early on just for his variant skill. Like, it doesn't matter, they put him into his dungeon team just for that variant skill, really. And stun and taunt is very strong in arena, just very annoying, very CC heavy monster that can annoy the living shit out of your enemies in arena. And HP lead is also very strong in arena. So a lot of people really just use him early on for his HP lead, and that's pretty much it. There's also a Hermite as well for the Guardian dungeon, and this guy's got morale boost and taunt. He's also relatively tanky. He has a attack lead skill, so you can actually get him as a variant. And if you're missing an attack lead, you can actually use this for your whole entire team. His stat is not bad, it's pretty balanced, so even if you wanted to build him as an attacker, it's still workable. Like, you can actually do it. But he's mostly a tank, like if you look at his stats. Yes. Alright, so moving on to the Suras. Suras have a single target second skill, so they're one of the few single target nukers in the game. And this guy, the water one or the fire one, has morale boost and adrenaline. Morale boost basically, you know, increases SP, and adrenaline heals. It only heals for 20% of his own max HP, and he's also an attacker type, so he's not going to have too much max HP, making his second skill kind of really useless, to be honest. Definitely not that good of a monster, in my opinion. There's definitely a lot better monsters you can use if you want some attackers. Or even fire attackers, like even if they're not single target. And single target does have more disadvantages than advantages in most cases. And like 90% of the time, they're mostly at a disadvantage. The water Sura is actually the best one. If you can get his crit rate to 100%, he has a 100% chance to stun for 2 turns if he can land a stun. Predator also makes his damage higher on his second skill, so when he actually gets it up, it actually does quite a bit of damage. He's really tanky, and you kind of really want that because you want him tanky for arena and stuff. So he's a really good monster, really solid CC monster, one of the best in the game because he's got a 2-turn stun. Nothing beats that, really. I don't know too much about the wood one. The wood one's got seal and sap. Seal is really only useful in PvP, not really all that useful outside of that. And sap is only useful in PvE, so his skill set is kind of weird. Like, it doesn't really make any sense at all. I don't think he's a really good monster. I mean, you could maybe bring him into dungeons for the sap, but then there are so many better alternatives, like, you know, the Yukis, even the vampire, like the wood vampire is just so much better than him as well. It's definitely not the best monster. Now there's the light Sura. He's got adrenaline, and Adrenaline, which basically heals. So he can heal for 10% of allies' HP every single time that he attacks. Now this is very good if you're running mostly tanky monsters. He can actually heal those tanky monsters relatively well. He also has nice defensive stats. He's balance type, so I think his stat distribution is really nice because all three of these stats are high and none of it really went into recovery. So this is a really, really good trade-off. And you can build him tanky, you can build him one slot attack, you can build him with some attack as well if you really want to. You can build him full glass cannon if you really, really want to. But the good thing is he can heal these like high HP pool monsters by 10% of their max HP every single time that he uses his first skill. And his second skill restores 20%, so it's basically like a stronger version of his first skill. And that's pretty much it. He's just a good monster. He's very unique. No monster has a skill set like his. Alright, Dark Sura is one of the strongest nukers, one of the strongest dark nukers. He's comparable to the Dark Gatito, and he actually might be able to do more damage than the Dark one. Actually no, he doesn't have as much attack damage. But he comes pretty close, and he also has that, well, instead of morale boost, he has HP Siphon, so he can survive pretty well. He's just a decent monster, a really good nuker. You can use him in place of a Dark Gatito if you don't have one. And that's going to be his main use. He just has a really, really hard-hitting single-target nuke. And there's a lot of places you can use that. You can use that to nuke down like TOC bosses. You can use that in certain dungeons if you want to just kill the boss really fast. It does have a lot of uses, so it's pretty good. Alright, Tigers. Tigers aren't all that good because, like, you know, if you compare him to a Fire Yuki's just better stats, better skills, no sap. Really can't say too much otherwise. You can actually use him early on for dungeons maybe if you want to use sap against like the Titan. You can make him Evo 2 and then eventually you can feed him to another element in the future. So, you know, sap early on, if you can get a 5-star monster with some sap, it's actually not too bad. The Water Tiger is a monster that I think a lot of people like using for arena defense. But I think that really only works on lower tier arena defense. It doesn't work too well on higher tier. Taunt, defense down. Obviously, defense down is really nice. Taunt is quite annoying in PvP. It's not too bad. His stat is okay. I wouldn't say it's really good. I think too much of it went into recovery. So he's not too tanky. Personally, I don't like him too much, but I see that people do like him. Like, dude, he's a popular monster, but I really don't see his strength or potential. But that's just my opinion. Now this guy is a pretty strong wood nuker. He has Predator on his 3-star skill, and he has Stun on his 5-star, which is actually pretty good because Stun is still useful. You can use that against a lot of mobs and dungeons. You can use that in PvP as well to do some CC. And he has 3,100 attack, which is pretty good for a NAT4 attacker, and he has that Predator, which basically just gets him even more damage. So he's a pretty good monster all around. Yeah, definitely pretty nice. The Light Tiger is one of the strongest monsters for Dragon's B10 because of the 100% CC. And he also has Hunter, which is like a crit, and he's also light, so that he comes with 20% base crit, so it's much easier to get him to 100% crit, because his first skill requires him to have 100% crit to have 100% CC. His stat is also really nice, nice HP, nice attack, higher than 2,000 defense, so that's always good. Not too much recovery, so that's also really good because you don't want the stats to all go into recovery. Now the Dark Tiger recently got buffed. He's the only 4-star monster with Battle Rush. Battle Rush is basically Adrenaline plus Morale Boost all in one. And he has attack down 60% on his second skill for 2 turns. Pretty good monster. I think, yeah, he's a really good monster for like arena defense and stuff. Really annoying. So definitely something people can build. He's also really tanky, so he's just a good monster. He's a really good monster for arena defense only. So something late game, you don't really need to touch too much on him early game. That's pretty much it for the Tigers. Alright, Fire Loki, I think you can use him in place of a Water Yuki. He's also, he almost has the same, identical skill set as a Water Yuki, but this only lands for 1 instead of 2, but it has an 80% chance, and that's really the only difference that he has in terms of skill. And he's also fire, so he's a different element. If you want to use him, you can actually use him against wood. He's nice, like he's a nice monster to have early on just for sapping certain dungeons. The Water Loki is also another, you know, he has Hunter, and his second skill scales with critical hit. So any monster like this, you will know that they're not really good early on. They require really good gems in order to perform well because of their stat requirement. And he's one of the best water attackers in the game. He has high attack, high HP, not too much defense, but that's all right. And he also has that nice Hunter skill, which basically gives him 50% more damage on critical hits. And his crits have a 100% chance of Thirst. And Thirst is actually, I mean, it's not too useful, but it still has its uses if you can manage to land it. So it's not too bad, especially if it's 100%. The Wood Loki has defense down and sleep. I wouldn't say it's too useful. I mean, defense down is nice to have. Sleep is pretty much useless. But if you're missing an armor breaker, you can definitely use them. There are some other choices you can use, like probably easier to raise monsters like a Wood Miho or something if you really want a Wood armor breaker. It's just 10% less chance. But if you can get a Wood Miho to Evo 3, it's going to outclass a Wood Loki at Evo 2. So that's something to consider. Where the heck am I? Alright, Light Loki. This is a really strong monster for Titans, mainly because of attack down, as usual. But his attack down, unlike most monsters, doesn't even last 1 turn, or it doesn't even last 2 turns, it lasts 3 turns. And he has a defense down of 70% AoE on his second skill. So basically he has a high chance to land debuffs, higher than normal monsters. He's just OP like that, really. He also has really good stat distribution, I think. Relatively high HP, high defense. I think a little bit too much recovery. Could have maybe went to his defense or something to make him a little bit better. But I really can't complain too much. I don't think I don't think his stat is all that bad, but his skill is just like insane. His skills are insanely good. The Dark Loki is a sealer. He basically just has seal on both his skills. I don't think he's really all that strong, but he does have his uses in Arena. You can, if you don't have any other sealers, you can definitely use him to seal some guys. And seal basically makes passives not work, so you can seal like aggressors and stuff. People with low resistance, you can actually seal. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I really can't say too much about it. Like you really only use seal in PvP, so not really all that useful. Early on, you can raise the fire one to sap, water one late game to nuke, and that's pretty much it. Alright, moving on to the Yakshas. Now, the Yaksha is actually really good for Titans. Attack down, as I said before, is really good for the Titans. Blind is also really nice because it basically, if you can stack both of these together, the Titan not only doesn't do as much damage, he also cannot crit at all. So that's actually pretty good. She's defender type, really tanky. Like this is good stat, like low recovery, some nice attack, over 3k HP, 30k HP, 3k defense, good stats. The Water Sura is an attacker. She's very similar to like the Wood Jeanne. I would put her in the exact same category, although her base attack is pretty high. Like so, I think she's okay. She's better than the Light Jeanne because her stats are better. But that's pretty much it. Like she's not really all that much better. The Wood one is a very strong monster for Dragon Speed 10 because of the 100% CC, as I said before. Also, the Hunter makes her do even more damage on her second skill, and the Yakshas also have a variant attack type leader skill, so very good for dragons as well. I definitely think she's really strong, and I'm working on trying to get one to Evo 3 to use for my Dragon Speed 10 team. Very good monster. Definitely excellent. Alright, I'll go over all the event monsters afterwards, but then it's not really all that useful for newer players. The light Yaksha, defense down Predator. Predator is good, it increases more damage, like this is just a good skill. Defense down, as I said before, is a really valuable skill. 70% chance for 3 turns, very, very high. You can use this anywhere, and she has nice stats, mostly attack, and she's an attacker, so yeah, just a really good monster all around. Dark Yaksha is a adrenaline monster. Similar to the light Sura, she restores allies' HP. She also has 60% chance to silence. She is a balance type, so she isn't as tanky, but her stats aren't too bad for a balance type. It has it mostly going to attack and HP. Kind of use her as an attacker. She's not too bad. You don't even need to have high HP on her because it doesn't. This adrenaline doesn't scale with her own HP. It scales with the allies' HP. So she can definitely just kind of be an attacker for you. It's not bad. Alright, moving on to the Nezhas. The Nezhas have attack down, defense down. As I said before, these two are very, very strong debuffs. Especially monsters with attack down on first skill. It's very good for Titans. Defense down also works on Titans, so that's also really, really nice. They also have a defense leader skill that they can use anywhere, so that's also very good if you can happen to get them as a variant. She's a tank type, nice HP, kind of low defense, but you know she has really high HP to make up for it. The water one is kind of like the fire Yaksha, similar skills, attack down, blind, but she has 70% for 2 turns, 70% for 2 turns on both her skills, and she's also a balance type, so you can gem her like with a bit of HP defense and like attack or something like that if you really want to. The sad thing is too much of her stats went into recovery, so her stat distribution definitely isn't too nice. Wood one is HP Siphon and Shield. She can basically restore her own health. Seal is really only useful in PvP. She's also an attacker. Stat wise, it's not bad. Like most attackers really just look like this. You can't really ask for better unless you have it like all not go into recovery and like higher HP or something like that. Then that's a really, really good attacker. But most of their stats are like that. I don't think the wood one's really all that useful. She can get outclassed by a lot of other really, really good monsters. We're on the Nezhas, not the Yaksha. Alright, so this guy's got blind. She's got blind and sap. Blind is alright, really only useful against Titans. Sap doesn't work against Titans, so that she makes absolutely no sense. Like this monster does not make sense at all. Maybe if you don't have a sap early on, you can kind of use her for the sap, but that's pretty much it. Stat wise, she's really tanky. Just look at the HP, look at the defense. It's pretty good. She's really tanky, but I don't know. She makes no sense. Her skill set makes absolutely no sense at all. Now, Dark Nezha is a really good monster. She's actually something I really want. She has HP Siphon, which basically restores her own HP when she attacks. She has an 80% AoE armor break for 2 turns on her second skill. That is actually really, really high. And she is mostly offensive. Like you see, her attack stat is pretty high. Although she's really squishy, you can kind of build her for glass cannon, and she can sustain herself through HP Siphon, so it's not too bad. Alright, I think we're almost there. We're at the Thors now. Thors for Rebirth. And honestly, I don't think you guys can get them anymore. If you guys happen to have a few Thors from the Thor Rebirth, the fire one has a double armor break, and it's pretty good. It's definitely not bad. Double armor break on any monster is going to be very, very useful, especially 70% on first turn, 50% on second turn. So she's kind of like the fire Yuki, but like 10% of her second skill went to her first skill. That's pretty much it. She's also not an attack type. He's also not an attack type. He's a defender type, and he's pretty tanky. I think too much of it went into recovery. That's why his stats aren't really all that good. Stat wise, this is not too good. The water one's actually a really good farmer. You can actually use him for farming because he has morale boost and predator. Morale boost gets his AoE up faster, so you can nuke harder, nuke faster, AoE nuke, destroy everything. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, and he has pretty high attack, so he's definitely not too bad. He's also he's a pretty good monster for just farming. The wood one is actually a really good monster for Titans because he has Courageous Strike and Blind. As I said before, Blind really only works on Titans. It basically makes it so he can't crit, or really only worth using on Titans. It doesn't really matter. You can use it on Giants, but it's not going to really affect your run too much. Courageous Strike makes it so he hits really hard on the Titans. He's just a good damage dealer for Titans, really. That's kind of his main job. Unfortunate thing is he does need to crit, so if you don't have a square slot on him, he's a little bit useless, which is unfortunate. The light one is actually becoming very popular for PvP. A lot of people use him for PvP just for the shock and defense down. Shock on PvP, if it lands, it's pretty insane. He's also really tanky if you just look at his stats. Most of his distribution went into HP and defense. So stat-wise, his stat distribution is really good. Skill-wise, he's also really good. So he's just a really good all-around monster. Can't really complain too much. Now, Dark Thor is my favorite. I really like him because he has really high attack. Well, actually, his stat distribution isn't all that good. But for the skills that he has, his stat distribution is the best out of... Basically, he's good because he can 100% armor break if he can get his crit rate up to 100%. And he also has which requires critical rate as well. So he's a little bit harder to gem. You do need 100% crit on him to make him effective. I use him on my Dragon Speed 10 team, which is my main thing. And he's my main armor breaker for anything that I want to use and require an armor break. He is my go-to armor breaker. So very versatile monster. Very useful for everything. Okay, so this is the Boltwing. Boltwing's pretty straightforward. 60% defense down, 60% attack down. Stat-wise, the Boltwings are alright. Definitely not too good because they're pretty squishy if you look at the stats. Attack's also not too high. I think just too much of it really went into recovery. But the Boltwings are very easy to farm. If you actually want to use a Fire Boltwing, it's actually usable. He's not a bad monster. With these debuffs, it's actually pretty good. But most people really just use them for fusion. If they can get them to Evo 3, they just fuse them away eventually for like the Light Shiva fusion. The water one, I actually don't know too much about the water one. Oh, it has Petrify on both skills. It's shit. It's not really useful. Like it's whatever. Stat-wise, it's also not very good. Wood one's pretty good early on. You can actually use an Evo 2 version. You can get it to Evo 2 relatively easily because the game gives you 3 Boltwings for free, so you can just farm one more, get a Boltwing to Evo 2, and you can actually use him for like a B7 dungeon because B7 is water and he's wood, and at 5 stars he's actually relatively useful, you know. So yeah, his stat is actually better than the fire one. It's pretty good. It's not too bad. It's actually pretty good for an attacker. The wood one's actually not bad if you actually want to use it. I think out of the 3 elements, the wood one's definitely the most worthy of actually being used. Boltwings don't have any RGB elements, so we don't need to look at those. The Anus are also farmable. They drop off the map. This one has stun and sap. Not really all that useful. There are better sapping alternatives, and there are better stunning alternatives, so not really all that good of a monster. Won't even bother looking at stats. The water one's pretty good. He's just a full glass cannon monster. Most of his stats really just went into attack. 60% defense down, predator. You know, you really can't go wrong with this. Very useful. These 2 skills if you really do want to actually use a water Anu. He's going to be a fairly decent water nuker. The wood one's actually a really good wood nuker because, as you can see, his stats not bad, but he has Hunter on both his skills. Hunter basically requires critical rate, so if you have high crit rate on him, he's going to be doing a lot of damage. He's just a straight out damage dealer, really no utility at all, but probably I would say it's between him and the water one. See which one you think is more useful. Obviously there are light dark ones as well. The light one is fusible, but he's also very hard to fuse. So it's not very easy. But he does have a nice 100% armor break and thirst. Thirst isn't really all that useful. People mainly just use him for that 100% armor break. He's also really tanky if you look at his stats. He's just a really high HP monster. Dark Anu is sap and aggression. Sap 60% 2 turns. This is actually pretty good. In aggression you can build him tanky, and he can sap as well. So I think he's actually a really good early game monster because you can basically just do 3 slot defense, and then he can do his job pretty well. So I would say he's one of the best monsters to use early game, like because you can transition from sap to mostly using an aggression, and then sap would still work because the golem has low resistance now. So he's pretty good for PvE if you happen to get one. I don't know if you can actually get a Dark Anu. Last monster, or two more monsters. There's the Mira. The Mira is also another farmable monster on the 3rd continent. He has Stalker and HP Siphon. I don't think the Miras are really all that strong. Probably the best one is probably the Fire one, mainly just because he has a 30% Stalker, unlike the shitty 20% that most other Stalker monsters have. And he can self-sustain with HP Siphon, so he's definitely pretty good. Stat-wise, you can see he's actually not too bad either. The water one's basically Seal, Armor Break. Seal's only useful in PvP, and Armor Break is 70% for 2 turns is actually pretty high, so he's pretty good as well. But too much of his stats actually went into recovery, so he's not his, like, stat-wise it's not too good. Recovery is a little bit too high. Wood one's pretty bad. Fatigue's kind of a useless debuff. Thirst is also not that good. He's a tank type, but then he has no defense either. Although his HP is actually not too bad. But I think they give him too much attack. He's just a little bit squishy as well if you just want to build him full tank for tanking purposes. This one's a defense aggressor, a light defense aggressor with Seal on his 2nd skill. Alright, these are good stats. 30k, 3k, you know, pretty good stats. I wouldn't complain too much about his stats. He's probably pretty good. Like, I think he's not bad. He's a pretty good monster. Dark one, recovery down is kind of useless. Sleep is also pretty useless. Stat-wise, he's pretty tanky. Like, these are some very good tank stats, but that's pretty much it. I guess you can just use the fire one as a fire nuker. That's really all there is to it. I don't even know if you can get a light one at this point, but there really is no point. And it's very hard for you to get him to like Evo 3 early on, or even Evo 2, because you have to be farming the last map. So that's actually a little bit difficult. The last monster is the Jeanne. You'll only get the Jinns from doing dragons. The fire one's really good because he can SP Siphon and Predator, so he can fill his SP bar and keep nuking. So that's actually really nice. Stat wise, he's very good for attacker. 3,200. That's definitely one on the higher end for most 4-star attackers. The water one is a monster that has morale boost and petrify. He basically is a team morale booster. And he also can petrify with his 2nd skill. Petrify is not all that good, but the team morale boost is actually not bad. Stat-wise, he's also not too good because it says he's defender, but then his defense is like super low, which makes 0 sense. Wood one is attack down and sap, 80% attack down for 1 turn. Now this is definitely pretty good. Probably use this, but then sap doesn't work on titans. Well, sap does actually work on titans, but it's just not really useful. It does like a few hundred damage or some shit. It does like 2,000, I don't know. It's pretty bad. Like, sap on titans is just not really all that good. It technically works, like it technically does apply on the titan, but then it does barely any damage for it to matter. So I don't know. I don't think he's really all that good. He's kind of shitty. I don't even know if you can get the light and dark Jinns. The light one's actually pretty good. He's got Adrenaline and Hunter, so he's got self-sustain, and he can nuke hard. But his first skill is kind of shit. Like, his first skill is Adrenaline is kind of bad. And his stat distribution, it says attacker, but then it mostly went to defense, which makes no freaking sense at all. And my voice is like cracking up because I've been talking for an hour non-stop. But I'm going to keep going until I finish this video. The last one is the Dark one. The Dark one has Petrify, 80% Silence. Petrify is not really all that useful. Silence is okay in PvP, but not really useful anywhere else. He's an okay monster. Pretty tanky. It says Balance, but like he's HP type. This is clearly HP type. This makes no sense. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the normal monsters. I'll talk a little bit about the event monsters, but these are very, very limited. There's the Light Gatito. This guy's a sapper with aggression on second skill. He's one of the only single target HP aggressors. He's got relatively high HP. You can no longer tame this monster, so he's really not all that good. The Dark one is actually a little bit better. The Dark one's got Dark one's got morale boost and Hunter. So Dark one's one of the best monsters in the game. Actually, I don't think I should talk about the event monsters. It doesn't really matter. Like, you can't get them anyways now. What's the point? Like, it's over. You can't get these monsters anyways. But most of the rebirth monsters are definitely really, really strong. I'll talk about them in a separate video of all the rebirth, event, and everything monsters. I think they belong in a separate category than 4 stars. But that is pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this very long video of me talking through every single 4-star in the game. And my voice is completely fucked now, but it was good. It was definitely pretty good. So thank you guys so much for watching. And if you have any questions, I know this is really, really brief. I can't really go into detail because of how many monsters there are. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.